And then what we're here to talk about today, the Apex Power Hub, which is something that was a brainchild of of our company. And Jimmy, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so we've got a link to our HTML5 tunnel connection, and it starts here where I'll pull up my list of projects. As soon as I click on, say, Paschke System, that starts my tunnel connection into Paschke's home. But for one moment, I'm going to stay on this screen because it's basically our setup. When I get my Apex Power Hub, I want to add the hub into my company.
Go back to that other screen real quick. Just one thing that we want to emphasize is that what we are seeing, since Jimmy and I have access to all the hubs out there, we're seeing all the hubs, right? But when a dealer, their experience will be, they will only see a subset, right? They'll only see the hubs that are connected to their account, and they will have the ability to have a hierarchical, setup here where we have, the word electronic home there, and there's a one hub under that. Your dealers will be able to say, okay, yeah, this is the Smith family, right?
Project name.
Yeah, project name. The Smiths might have 12 different homes across the U.S. and all their homes would be underneath that. But so that's what we're looking here. Each one of those is a hub inside at an installation.
Yeah, and only one hub would be needed per project, no matter how many IP addressable products you might have spread throughout a home. So think about, like, we're doing a lot more large format 10 kVA UPSs for lighting loads. And so maybe that'll be in one area of the property. Actually, sometimes it's in multiple areas of the property. And then you might just be using, say, 20 amp rack mounted UPSs inside technology racks. You could have Good Systems products behind TVs throughout a home. You could have Good Systems products in the rack area. So it's an aggregator. When we get it set up, I think you'll see the cool factor of why that's neat. And so I'm starting here. My name's Jimmy. My phone number is this. I want my phone to receive critical and high alerts, and we'll show you inside the hub, like, how we address those. I've added Vince, and Vince hates it because he gets you used to get all of my alerts. And then he was like, I'm taking myself off of your temperature alerts because you get so damn many of them. So if I want, critical, I'll see a text for sure. Emails, I might not catch that one. That's just me. So that's where we're setting up alerts. And then going back to that portal screen, clicking on Paschke, we'll log in here. So I generally think that as a channel of business, we're mostly reactive, and our goal is to try to not be as reactive. But I think this scenario would be something like, hey, a customer's calling me. I'm going to log into their project. They're telling me they've had issues all this past week. I want to see firsthand in this overview page, does it look pretty clean or does it have a lot of stuff on it? And this has a lot of stuff on it, right? So I'm looking at high and critical alerts for pretty much all of September. I'll go back. August was not so great. July, not so great. June, it looks like we've got something going on here, and we definitely do at the Paschke household. I definitely have issues. Primarily, if I want to know what those issues are, we go down to recent notifications, and this is me lifting up my kimono telling you guys that I suck at climate control at my house. I say all the time, if you have a robust network, you put in a solid power foundation, you get your programming and your installation correct, and actually dealers gave me those two, and then you accounted for climate, you will have less of a need to have a customer calling you and you reacting to them saying something's not working. Doesn't take care of everything. But the one thing that is definitely not working for me is this over 90 degrees thing that I've got going on. It basically makes it so that periodically I've got to reboot my Apple TV because it gets so hot. So back to the overview page. If I wanted to dig in here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go look at the UPS, because the UPS is taking raw power, right, generally from the wall outlet, or if it's a big 10 kVA unit, it's taking a 60 amp 240 volt split phase straight from the mains breaker or another sub panel of the home. That's going to be what's my raw power looking like coming in, because if I relied on my GU AV rack PDU, I'm not going to see much in variation. I'm going to see probably 120 plus or minus a volt or two on occasion. But if I look at the UPS, I will probably have a little bit of a story to tell. So today we're at 122 volts in right at this moment. We're at 119 on the output, not overdrawing the UPS. That's good to know. If I had to use current out of the batteries, because either I went below 70 volts or above 150, which is our operating range, if we're within that range, then we don't have to actually pull current out of the battery. But if we go below or above it, yep, we'll be on battery at that moment without transfer time, which is good. but that'll tell me I've got 81 minutes to basically depletion. Oh, and then just a heads up while we're talking, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we've got to change those batteries out in about 23 months. Now, this is kind of a BS way of letting you know. It's just a calendar. We'll show you how to change that if you want to change the calendar based on your experiences in certain neighborhoods or certain areas of the country that you're doing work in. Every 2 to 3 years or 3 to 5 years is about when you need to swap out lead acid batteries. But as I told my friend Harry in Puerto Rico this, he's like, nah, it'll be about 9 months in Puerto Rico. I'm like, all right. So, you guys know your business, you know how often power is going out or going below or above the thresholds we mentioned earlier. As I dig in further, because, I kind of want to get to the heart of the matter and just rule out power is what I'm going to try to do. I want to preface this, like we've got a certain level of information that we're able to obtain. Just know that we are working towards getting way more granular than I'm about to show you here even, right? So 2 things, I forgot to set this demo up prior to you all seeing it, but today, Wednesday, the 24th, I can scroll through and I can see that I've really not had that much of a variance in input voltage. It looks like I've got 122 to 125. My output's pretty standard. If the customer's calling us and they are having a power problem, it's likely that the UPS is beeping. If you want to stop the beep, just hit this mute button. This will basically mute the UPS. We could do this at setup, by the way. Just mute the UPS. So yes, the customer loves that it's helping them. They freaking hate the beep. So just get rid of the beep entirely for the eternity. The only time it will beep is if we have a catastrophic failure. But if it's just on battery pulling current because the power input is not acceptable, then it won't beep, which is good.
Hey, Jimmy, I think it was pretty funny. When we were at CEDIA, of course, one thing we neglected to say, we used to call this the Apex Power Hub. We now refer to it as the award-winning Apex Power Hub because we've won 2 CEDIA awards on this hub. Next week we'll be showing the Cinema Hub, which was another award-winning product, but you'll tune in next week for that. But that little button right there about turning off the audible alarm was really the impetus for this whole system. Ryan was talking to the developers and just kind of casually said, hey, is there any way you guys can make a system that turns the alarm off remotely? And that was kind of the seed that grew this whole system out. So when we were at CEDIA and we were demoing this, every time we showed that alarm off button to dealers, that's when you could see in their face say, oh God, that is worth the price of admission right there to turn that stupid alarm off. Because that is a it's a big thing. But Jimmy, I think while we're here, we need to emphasize that if you turn the alarm off, you then need to go down to notification and make sure that you as a dealer are being notified as to what's going on, because that alarm is important. We don't want to hear it, but what it's trying to articulate is important, right? So whereas at the portal level, Jimmy showed you, okay, I want, medium, or I'm sorry, highs and criticals to be sent to my phone, and I want mediums to be sent to my email. This is where you set that up. You can see there's a list of conditions there, and you can set a level, right? Whether you want it to be high, medium, low, or just informational, and that can be set up across your, across your company. And you can say, okay, for the Smith job, I want all the critical ones to go to, these particular technicians, but I want, mediums and, to still go to, this technician and that technician. Hey, well, you'll figure it out. We've got a lot of flexibility. Go ahead.
Hey, Vince, I have a question on that. So if one of the things that came up, Brian, and induced into our conversation, which I thought was a great point, somebody deployed 120 devices on a yacht and used the hub to do that within, I think he said hours, not a week.
Yeah.
Two guys would have taken a week. One guy did it with the hub in hours. If we make these decisions, does that then export? So if we go to, import export, so we save a config file, will that actually, do we know the answer to this? I'm just making a question up that I haven't ever asked you before.
No, but I'm having a meeting with the developers today, and I will ask them that question. That is a very good point. So if you went, I guess what your question is if you've set up your notification, will those be exportable? But actually, I take that back. No, Jimmy, the answer to that is in the notifications when you go to settings, each one of those 120 devices will be listed here. And what you'll do is you'll name let's say it's an 1141 from Good, which is our 4-outlet behind the TV device. You have the Office 1141, and you've got choices there. You'll name each one of those uniquely, every one of those 120 1141s, and you'll have temperature and other parameters for each one of those available on this list. So yeah, you won't need to export it. It'll all show up right here.
Okay, that's cool. All right, so going back, because there's one point I want to make sure I cover up here. When we were in that UPS and we were looking at input voltage, and we were kind of looking at, oh, this is just Wednesday, or I could sit here and scroll for a while, Tuesday, Monday, or I just go to export history, select, okay, September has been a horrible month. Let's just select September and download the CSV file. That would then allow me to sort quickly and see if I've had a big gap in input voltage, because we've known for a while now that if we have a 10-volt fluctuation up or down, that can lead to us having to reboot significantly more than if power were stable. That's not the only reason reboots are caused, but it seemed to be the biggest one over our 9 years at our previous employer, and then already we're seeing it for the 3 years that we've been here at Apex. So we were able to export a CSV, which is cool. We had the UPS there. Obviously I can look at and see if outlets are on or off. I can do that a couple different ways. So here I've got one interface. I've got my Good Office product. I've got the Good Rack product. I also put a watt box in my system just to see what would happen if we threw that in there. And so one other way to look at this is just a full listing of everything in my system. And so if I want to search this quickly for the thing that I need to reboot all the freaking time, it's right here.
Yep.
So when I'm on the plane and my wife says something happened with our video again, I go and do the reboot, and she's like, "Thank you very much." And I'm like, "Cool, we're good." Vince, question?
So Jamie, one thing that I got a question a lot at CEDIA is, it's like, okay, the use case that I need to do the most with this is, I'm at dinner as a dealer. It's Friday night. I'm out to dinner, but my customers are using their theater, and that's when I'm getting all my darn phone calls. What is the best way to reboot outlets remotely from my phone? And that's really where that outlet button came from. It allows you to see all of the outlets on all of the IP addressable PDUs. By the way, it's not only the Good stuff, but as you can see here, we support Wattbox. Later this year, we will be doing Blue Bolt, and I believe someone at the show asked for Blue Dog. Is that another one?
Blue Ball is definitely on our list.
Yeah.
Blue Dog, I want to say that we have that functionality.
Actually, we at first we had a Blue Dog just by chance in the office, and the developers put it on there, and we thought we would be we would think big company, oh yeah, we're only going to make it our stuff, and then later on it's like, why are we doing that? Why are we being jerks about it? It's like, no, we'll put everybody's on there. So we'll be putting those on there, but this is what you will be using from the phone.
So if I scan for a brand, it'll pull it in automatically. If I don't find it, the other way of doing it is to add the IP address manually. So I just do that here. I don't have one to add manually, so I'm not going to do that, but that's how we would add.
Yeah.
And then last thing about the UPS screen that I was on, because I mentioned that knowing the date is kind of like BS way of replacing batteries. We do a battery run test every week. You could get notified that the battery run test failed. Then you could call the customer up and say, hey, we used math to figure it out and science, and it told us that our batteries are no longer healthy, so it's time to swap. Or you could change the dates. I missed mine. I'm an idiot and did not do my inspection on August 29th. I will also probably miss replacing them in 2027. But when I said that yesterday, I went into critical alerts and I said, notify me 1 month ahead of August 29th, 2027. And probably I'll do it then. If I don't get that notification, I probably won't. And I'll just wait until it happens. And then my wife will be like, why the hell? And then I'll do it. All right. So we run battery tests weekly, or you can enter, change any one of these dates. So if I miss this date, I could probably set up a different one, and maybe I won't do it again in 2 months, like my honey-do list. All right. So back to overview. We talked about the different ways to control outlets. We looked at this look here. We looked at the outlets as one big list. We looked at adding product. There's, what do I want to say? Automation. We can schedule devices to go up and down. So I could probably help my Apple TV by just taking it down periodically and back up, and not letting it run a 24/7 duty cycle, because that clearly isn't working at over 90 degrees in my rec room. But yeah, setting up schedule commands, load shedding. I don't see this as such a big deal for a 30 amp UPS. Just know that if our big UPS, let me go over to our showroom where we've got a big UPS. So here's an example of a 10 kVA, which is driving our entire showroom, and then a 1 kVA we just happen to throw into the rack just so we could see how all this worked together. But if this big old UPS here was on battery, right, on meaning we were pulling current out of the battery. So every time I say that, I'm leery because I don't want you to think that there's some sort of transfer time over to the battery. There's no transfer time. But if this were on battery, then I could, at some point, I could say the moment we go to battery or the moment we fall below a certain percentage, you fill in that blank, 50%, 25%, whatever you feel is the best answer. The big UPS could have a big ass rack of and if it has a big ass rack of amplifiers, maybe you don't want all the amplifiers on just for no reason at all while we're on battery. So the big UPS obviously is telling our power hub that we're on battery. It obviously tells it when we reach a certain point of battery. It can then make sure that the power hub, this is the power hub as the brain, not the UPS telling it to do it, but the power hub could then send a command straight to a watt box or straight to the GUD product and do an abrupt takedown of certain outlets, and it can be in sequence up and down, or you could decide to do that via a Crestron, Savant, or something being triggered to take it down via IP control, so it's not so abrupt. It's up to you. Vince, anything to add here?
No, I think you covered that well.
Okay, so then I don't know where to go from here. Do you have any direction for me? Because I think
No.
we've covered just about everything.
I think you did. I actually, in that section, scroll down to the bottom, and Ryan made a very good point yesterday.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it, Jimmy?
Well, yeah. So, we heard the story, but I didn't commit it to memory because it was really Ryan working it. Again, he had a dealer in Miami that did this big yacht, and they had 120 of these GUD IP addressable devices that were going to go on the big yacht. And it was going to take 2 guys about a week is what the gentleman told Ryan. And Ryan's like, we've got this ability to take your config, save it, and then export it to your list of products. And so that's what they did. And again, Ryan would know the exact time it took him, but I think it's within hours. It might have been within minutes, but let's just say it was within hours, and it wasn't a whole week for 2 guys to do it. I think that's pretty awesome. And it's a big time saver. And I know that this channel of business loves to save time because none of us have any. Right?
Yeah. See, with the hub, you can import, if you're using a GUD device, you can both import names that you have named outlets as well as export them. You go in both directions with the hub. So in this yacht, they happen to have multiple staterooms that were identical setups, right? So they set up one stateroom, named all the devices what they needed, or all the outlets, named them what their appropriate names, and then we're able to pull that configuration into the hub and then export it to all the other hubs out there, because all the names we're going to say the stateroom names of course changed, but all of the particular setups that they had was, and our dealer was like, oh my God, that was worth the price of the hub there itself, just that one thing, because that saved us a week of programming. So that was a pretty cool
actually feature. We haven't mentioned the price. So $2,400 is our retail, just so everybody knows if you're wondering. And it's again, 1 hub per project, as long as all these devices are on the same network. What else do we want to say? Oh, there's no other additional fees to this Power Hub product after you purchase it. We got feedback 2 CDs ago that's how you preferred to buy from us. You guys don't like RMR, as long as you're having to pay it. But then you can spin that around, because there are plenty of folks that aren't selling this just as a black box. They're putting it into a service contract, warranty contract, or monitoring. And so those are a few different ways that you all have told us how successful you are at the Power Hub to clients. Okay, so I think we've got a little bit of time left here. We could go into like Q&A, and I believe that one of the ways of doing that is just raising your hand through the app there, or going to the chat and asking that way. We'll probably post this to our YouTube channel, which is just Apex Technologies over at YouTube. I'll try to get that done by Friday of this week. In case anyone wants to, like, oh, what was that they did on that one section? How did we add product or change our notifications, etc. Right? But hey, I know no one has time these days, and you took 45 minutes, actually just a little bit less. with us today. If you have anything you need to get in touch with us on, please contact your local rep. They'll know how to reach us if you don't already have our information. But it's just Jimmy and Vince, and then the rest of it is at Apex-Tech US. All right, appreciate everyone's joining here. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. You bet. Madrona coming out as a team. That's great. All right. See you, Vince.
Later.